With all the productivity advice that is given out there, there's so many things that people don't speak about. So today, I'm going to break down all the myths to make sure you don't fall into that productivity trap. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben Schwartz and I'm a high performance coach. I work with individuals both on a personal and a professional level to make sure that they're living the lives that they want to be living. If you're interested in living a richer life, make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. Over the last couple of years, I've been obsessed with productivity. You see, I've always been trying to find the latest hack and the new insights to try to do things a lot more efficiently. And it makes sense. So many people out there are just so not in control of their schedules, and their schedules are really in control of them. If we can start to learn how to be more effective with our time, we're only going to be able to accomplish so much more. However, people don't realize that there is a certain trap that happens on the other side of starting to be too productive. And there's some common pitfalls that a lot of people fall into. So here are 5 different things that you can start to think about when it comes to productivity. The first thing we need to understand is we have to understand what it is that we're really trying to accomplish. You see, although we all want to be so productive with our lives, we have to understand that there has to be a reason for the thing that we're doing. And if we just end up keeping ourselves busy, that's not going to lead to anything. We can be extremely productive with our days, but it'll also lead to nowhere. And we have to realize that if we want to be doing something, there has to be a reason behind it. And it may sound simple, but so many people don't really understand why it is they're doing a thing they want to be doing. I was one time coaching this really successful entrepreneur, and he was in his business for 25 years. I asked him just a question because I was curious, and I asked him why he does what he does. And I wish you could have seen his face. He had this fear on his face, and he started to think about the question, and he couldn't answer it. He was doing something for 25 years. He was even so successful that he was in about 16 different states in America. But he never asked himself that fundamental question of why he's doing it in the first place. And because of that, he's been so busy and he got so carried away with what he was doing that he didn't really realize why he's doing it. It's the same reason why so many entrepreneurs fall into the trap of needing to constantly grow their business, get more money. And if you would ask them when they first started out, the reason why they wanted money, it's because they want to spend time with the people that they love. They want to be able to have a certain type of lifestyle and go on certain types of vacations. But they don't realize that the more they work, the more they are giving their time to the work and not really utilizing the money and what it's for. So many people get so caught up in being productive in their days that they don't even think about the reasons why they really wanted to be productive in the first place, and they end up missing the whole point about the productivity that they're really doing. Understanding why it is you're doing what you're doing and making sure that you're keeping your North Star very clear is going to be something that's going to be very helpful for you in order to be able to live the life that you want to be living and not get carried away. The second idea that we need to understand is that we have to realize that we only have a certain amount of time in this world. And people who know that realize that time is so important and it's the biggest commodity that we really have. But we have to understand when it comes to being productive, many times people get themselves burnt out. And because they get themselves burnt out, they end up losing more time on the back end. We have to realize that if we're looking to live a productive life, we have to zoom out a little bit and not just look at each specific day, but maybe look at the weeks, the months, the quarter, the year, as opposed to just this specific time period. Because so many people get themselves burnt out and they're not actually able to do the amount of work that they could do in a bigger chunk of time. Think about it. If somebody's able to work 2 weeks straight and then they get burnt out and they're out for a week, week and a half, that's 3.5 weeks of work that they're only doing in 2 weeks. But if they would spread that productivity over the course of 3.5 weeks, they might be able to do so much more with that 3.5 week time period. Making sure that we're focusing on the big picture could be something that could be really helpful for us to make sure that we're really being productive and doing what we really want to be doing. Don't get so caught up in terms of I need to get the work done today, because what's going to happen is you're only going to hurt yourself later on down the line. And it's one of the reasons why I tell people to journal, because they could see the certain patterns that got them burnt out. And if you're into productivity, you're probably going to get burnt out. If you're into success, you're going to get burnt out, and that's okay. But what are the lessons we're learning from it? How are we going to get better the next time? How are we going to decrease the amount of time that we're going to get burnt out? And if we could understand that and realize, hey, these are the patterns that got me burnt out, maybe I should slow down a little bit. Maybe in the big picture, I could have that patience and really look to just make sure that I'm doing things overall so I could be more productive in the bigger picture. The third idea comes from a client of mine. You see, he was constantly trying to be productive with everything he did. And it was so amazing that he was always trying to work on himself. However, he couldn't give himself a break. He couldn't allow himself to not work. And he thought every time he was quote unquote wasting time was going to be something that was going to be bad for him. And yes, for most people, if we're just sitting around and we're binge watching Netflix, of course, it's not going to be something that's going to be productive for us. But we have to understand that sometimes not doing the work is actually going to be something that will be very productive for us. For example, if somebody works out 7 days a week, they don't give themselves time to rest. And because they don't give their time to rest, their muscles aren't able to develop the way that they would like to. So we have to realize that sometimes taking a break is the most productive thing that we can do. It tags on the other side of the burnout equation, but recognizing that, hey, by us not doing something can be something that could be really productive. I also had a client of mine who really wanted to get closer with his children. And one time his kid came over and said, hey, Dad, can I show you something on my computer? And the dad said, for sure, let me come over. And he went over to the son, but the son had a hard time finding out where it was on his computer. And the dad said, you know what, call me when you have it. I have to go take care of something. And the father told me that he just felt like he was wasting his time. He wasn't being productive, so he wanted to go do something in the meantime. About 10 minutes later, the son called him back and the father went over and he was like really excited to see what it is his son had to show him. But I told him, maybe those 10 minutes of you just hanging out with him, even if it was for small talk, could have been something that could have built that relationship between the two of you. Instead of just going to do something more productive because you feel like you're being productive, it could be that the small things and the time that you spend doing quote unquote non-productive things can be more beneficial. So just because you're not taking action doesn't mean that it's not something that is going to be helpful for the larger picture. Recognize that patience and a break is a part of the process, and we all have the ability to really take a step back sometimes. The fourth idea is this idea of quality versus quantity with the work that we're looking to do. You see, so many times people come to a scenario, they come to a situation, and they feel like they have to max out in that specific area. And it's true, and sometimes they need to be able to really do all the things that they can be doing. However, by doing all of that, they end up losing in some other area of their life. And it's really important to understand that although sometimes it's really important to have the quantitative aspect in our lives, we also have to have the qualitative aspect in our life. And so many times people are trying to juggle both of them. And if we would ask someone what type of lifestyle do they want to really be living overall, they will really be able to understand that, hey, you know what? Maybe it's more important that I have a more appreciative life, more qualitative life, a more present life, as opposed to me being so busy and being so productive. So understanding that we all have our specific goals and we all have things that we want to be working on is something that it could be really, really important. But also understanding that there's this bigger picture of a state, of a lifestyle that we want to be living, and therefore maybe taking some work off of our plate and being less productive can be something that in the bigger picture could be more productive for us. So many people want to be doing so many things, but they have to understand that they have to say no to that. And the fifth and final tip is to realize that when we do have that time that we're not going to be doing something, we have to really understand what it is we're filling with that time. Because if you're somebody who's trying to be more productive, you know that guilty feeling you get when you're not doing something. But if we can start to say, hey, this is how I'm going to fill my time. This is what's going to be important to me. This is something that even though I'm quote unquote not being productive in the best sense, I am going to be productive in another area. And there's always two sides to the coin. So recognizing that could be something that could be so powerful when it comes to being productive. You're already engaged in doing so much, and allowing yourself to take a step back is only going to be more beneficial to you overall. Being productive is an incredible trait to really have, and really a skill that we can constantly be working on our whole lives. But understanding in the big scheme of things, there's other aspects to our goals, and sometimes we just get carried away from what it is that we really want to be doing. By being aware of these steps, we're going to be able to avoid them and make sure we don't fall into that productivity trap that so many people fall into. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, as well as check out this video over here where I talk more about productivity.